Jeremy stood at the airport counter at 5:47 a.m., his worn suitcase leaning against his leg, boarding pass confirmation pulled up on his cracked phone screen. The terminal hummed with the early morning energy of travelers clutching coffee cups and dragging luggage toward their gates. He'd woken up at 3 a.m. to make this flight to Hawaii, his stomach tight with nervous excitement about seeing his family, about watching his younger brother Marcus finally get married. Confirmation number E7R4MK, he said to the attendant, a young woman with tired eyes and a practiced smile. She typed efficiently, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Then her smile faltered. She typed again, slower this time, her brow furrowing. Jeremy's stomach dropped before she even spoke. "Sir, I'm not finding any reservation under this confirmation number," she said carefully, her customer service training keeping her voice neutral. "Can you verify the spelling of your name?" Jeremy spelled it out, his hands beginning to tremble slightly. JREMY space HARSON. More typing. More concerned glances at her screen. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no ticket under your name for this flight, or any flight to Hawaii this week." The words hit him like a physical blow. His mind raced through possibilities. Credit card declined? Booking error? System glitch? He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, scrolling frantically through his email until he found it. The confirmation his mother had sent him 3 weeks ago. "Family trip to Hawaii for Marcus's wedding. Your ticket is booked, sweetheart. Can't wait to see you." He showed the attendant his phone. She looked at the email, then back at her screen, sympathy creeping into her professional expression. "Sir, this looks like a confirmation email, but it's not from our airline. It doesn't have our booking reference format. I'm sorry, but there's no actual ticket attached to your name in our system. Someone may have sent you this without actually completing the purchase." The airport noise seemed to fade into white noise. Jeremy stepped away from the counter, other passengers moving around him like water around a stone. His fingers fumbled with his phone as he called his mother. It rang 4 times before she answered, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was annoyed at being disturbed. "Jeremy, it's 6 in the morning. What's wrong?" Her voice was cold, clipped, nothing like the warm tone from the email. "Mom, I'm at the airport. There's no ticket. They're saying I'm not in the system." A pause. Too long. Then, "Oh, well, we thought you decided not to come. You never confirmed." The lie was so casual it took his breath away. "Mom, you sent me the confirmation. You said my ticket was booked. I've been planning this for weeks. I took time off work." She cut him off, her voice hardening. "Jeremy, don't make this dramatic. Marcus wanted a small, intimate ceremony anyway. We thought it would be easier this way." "Easier?" His voice cracked, years of similar dismissals suddenly crystallizing into this one moment. "Mom, this is Marcus's wedding. I'm his brother." Another pause, and when she spoke again, the warmth was completely gone, replaced by that cool disappointment he'd heard his entire life. "Honestly, Jeremy, you always make things about you. We didn't want any drama on Marcus's special day. I have to go. The photographer is here." The line went dead. Jeremy stood in the middle of LAX terminal, travelers streaming past him, his suitcase packed with the suit he'd spent too much money on, the wedding gift he'd carefully chosen, and the speech he'd been practicing for his little brother. His vision blurred with tears he refused to let fall in public. They forgot him. No, they excluded him. On purpose. He whispered to no one, to the indifferent airport around him, to the family that had just erased him. They forgot, on purpose. Then he turned around, grabbed his suitcase, and walked back toward the exit, each step feeling like he was leaving more than just an airport terminal. Jeremy made it home by 8 a.m., his apartment feeling emptier than usual in the morning light. He dropped his suitcase by the door, not bothering to unpack, and collapsed onto his worn couch. His phone had been silent the entire ride home. No follow-up call from his mother. No text from Marcus asking where he was. Nothing. Then, around 10 a.m. California time, 3 p.m. in Hawaii, his phone started buzzing. The family group chat, Harrison Family Red Heart, was suddenly exploding with activity. Each notification felt like a small knife. He knew he shouldn't look. He knew it would hurt. But some masochistic part of him needed to see it, needed to confirm what he already knew. The photos flooded in rapid succession. His mother in a flowing blue dress, looking radiant, her arm around Marcus. His father in a crisp linen suit, smiling broader than Jeremy had seen in years. Marcus and his new wife Rachel on the beach, the sunset painting everything gold. The extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all gathered for the perfect family trip. His Aunt Carol's caption: "The Harrison family together at last. Red heart, hibiscus, his cousin David. Best family vacation ever. Love you all." His mother's post, the one that made his chest physically ache: "My beautiful boys and their perfect day. So grateful for family." Jeremy scrolled through 47 photos. In not a single one was his name mentioned. Not in the captions. Not in the comments. It was as if he had never existed. As if the Harrison family had always been this perfect unit of parents, Marcus, Rachel, and extended relatives. The difficult older son, the one who couldn't get his life together, the one who made everything about him, simply edited out of the narrative. His finger hovered over the Leave Group button, but something stopped him. Instead, he started taking screenshots. Every photo, every caption, every comment about the complete family and the perfect trip. He saved them methodically to a folder on his phone, some instinct telling him he'd need this documentation someday. Evidence that this really happened, that he wasn't crazy for feeling erased. Then he blocked the chat. Not dramatically, not with a message. Just a quiet block that would spare him from seeing any more photos of the family that had decided he didn't belong. He set his phone face down on the coffee table and stared at his ceiling, feeling the weight of humiliation and disbelief settle over him like a heavy blanket. Jeremy spent the rest of the weekend in a fog, but by Monday morning, anger had begun to seep in through the cracks of his heartbreak. He needed answers. Real ones. Not his mother's dismissive brush-off at the airport. He needed to understand how his entire family could coordinate a wedding, a trip, a celebration, and systematically exclude him. He called his mother again that evening, after her flight should have landed back in Phoenix. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and satisfied, clearly still riding the high of the weekend. "Jeremy, did you see the photos? Wasn't it beautiful?" The cognitive dissonance of her tone made his head spin. "Mom." His voice came out harder than he intended. "I need you to explain to me what happened. Really explain it." A sigh on the other end. "Jeremy, I told you. We thought you weren't coming. You never confirmed." The lie again, as if repetition would make it true. "Mom, I texted you 2 weeks ago confirming. I texted Marcus. I told you both I was excited. I bought a suit. I took time off work. You knew I was planning to be there." His voice rose despite his attempt to stay calm. "So please stop lying to me and tell me what actually happened." The warmth vanished from her voice instantly, replaced by that cold, clipped tone that had defined so much of his childhood. "You want the truth, Jeremy? Fine. You always make things about you. Every family event, every holiday, every gathering, you find a way to create drama, to make it difficult. Marcus specifically asked that we keep his wedding small and stress-free. We didn't want any complications." Complications. The word felt like a slap. "I'm his brother. What complications?" His mother's voice grew sharper, more defensive. "You know what I mean. You're always struggling with something. Your job situation, your apartment, your relationships. Marcus didn't want his day clouded by your issues. We made a family decision that it would be better this way." Jeremy felt something crack inside him. A family decision. One that everyone was part of except me. His voice dropped to something quieter, more dangerous. "You painted me as the problem. The difficult one. But I've never been the one making things difficult, Mom. I've been the one left out. There's a difference. Don't turn this into one of your victim narratives," she snapped. "We did what was best for Marcus. If you can't understand that, then maybe we made the right choice." The cruelty of it was almost impressive in its casualness. She had convinced herself, convinced the whole family, that excluding him was an act of love for Marcus rather than what it actually was, a rejection of Jeremy himself. "I understand perfectly," Jeremy said quietly. "I understand that you all got together, talked about Marcus's wedding, and decided I wasn't worth including. That's clear." He paused, something hardening in his chest. "But here's what you need to understand, Mom. I'm done. I'm done begging for a place in a family that doesn't want me. I'm done trying to be good enough for people who've already decided I'm not." "Jeremy, don't be dramatic," he hung up. He didn't throw the phone this time. He simply ended the call, blocked her number, and sat in the silence of his apartment. The heartbreak was still there, raw and bleeding. But underneath it, something else was growing. A quiet determination. A resolve that he would never again measure his worth by their acceptance. Jeremy had forgotten about his sister until her text came through an hour later. Melissa was the middle child, 3 years younger than Jeremy, 2 years older than Marcus. She'd always been the diplomatic one, the peacekeeper, the one who tried to smooth over family tensions while never quite taking a side. Her message was short. Mom told me you called. I'm sorry you're upset. Not, I'm sorry we excluded you. Not, I'm sorry for what happened. Just sorry he was upset, as if his feelings were the problem, not the actions that caused them. Jeremy stared at the text for a long moment before responding. You knew. You all knew. And none of you said anything. 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. It wasn't my place to go against what Mom and Marcus wanted. It was Marcus's day. Marcus is my brother too. Jeremy's fingers moved quickly across the screen. Did he even ask about me? Did anyone think maybe I'd want to be there? The response came faster this time. Don't make this about you, Ja. It was his wedding. His choice. You need to respect that. The final sentence hit him like a physical blow. Don't make this about you. The family motto, apparently. The catch-all dismissal for any time Jeremy expressed hurt or questioned being treated as lesser. Any boundary he set, any pain he articulated, any need he expressed, it was always making it about him. As if wanting to be included in his own family was somehow narcissistic. Respect what? He typed back, his hands shaking. Respect being erased? Respect being lied to? Respect everyone deciding I'm not worth a plane ticket. Melissa's response was cold. Respect that we're all tired of walking on eggshells around your feelings. Grow up, Jeremy. He threw his phone across the room this time. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack, the screen splintering but not shattering completely. He didn't care. Let it break. Let everything break. He was tired of being the problem for having the audacity to expect basic inclusion. Tired of being told to grow up by people who couldn't handle direct conversation. The emotional pivot happened in that moment, sitting on his floor, his phone cracked and screened down across the room. Heartbreak was still there, but it was crystallizing into something harder, something that felt almost like freedom. He would never beg for their love again, never apologize for existing, never shrink himself to make them comfortable. They had made their choice. Now he would make his. While his family had been celebrating in Hawaii, Jeremy had spent the weekend alone, but he hadn't been idle. Something about the exclusion had unlocked a manic energy. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat normally, could only pace and think and feel. So he'd started doing the thing he'd been avoiding for months, cleaning out his life of them. He deleted old photos from his phone, years of family gatherings where he'd always been slightly apart, slightly uncomfortable, slightly wrong. Christmas photos where his smile never quite reached his eyes. Thanksgiving dinners where conversations happened around him rather than with him. Birthday parties where his presence was tolerated rather than celebrated. Each deletion felt like lancing a wound, painful but necessary. His apartment walls had been decorated with family photos, his mother's insistence from years ago. Family is everything, she'd always said, while treating him like he was something shameful to be hidden. He took them all down, one by one, leaving rectangles of brighter paint on his sun-faded walls. The photos went into a box, which went into his storage closet. Not thrown away, he wasn't quite ready for that, but removed from sight. In the back of his closet, while putting away the box, he found something that made him stop cold. An old shoebox containing cards and letters from his late grandfather, his dad's father, who had passed away 5 years ago. Jeremy had been 23, struggling through his first real job, drowning in student loans and self-doubt. He opened the box with trembling hands and found a card from his last birthday before Grandpa died. Inside, in that shaky handwriting that came with age and illness, were words Jeremy had forgotten. Jeremy, my boy, you've got something special in you. A good heart and a smart mind. Don't let anyone make you think you're less than you are. You'll do great things, sweetheart. I believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Love always, Grandpa. Jeremy sat on his closet floor and cried for the first time since the airport. Not the angry tears or the shocked tears, but deep, grieving sobs for the one person in his family who had truly seen him, truly valued him, and who was gone. Grandpa had been his defender at family gatherings, the one who asked about his life with genuine interest, who never made him feel like a burden or a problem. Attached to the card was a voicemail transcript. Jeremy had saved an old voicemail to text back when phone companies still did that. Grandpa's voice frozen in digital text. Just calling to say I'm proud of you, Jeremy. I know your folks are hard on you sometimes, but don't let it dim your light. You're going to do great things. Call me when you can. Love you. That night, Jeremy made a decision. He would do great things. Not to prove anything to his family. They'd already decided his worth. But to prove it to himself. To honor Grandpa's belief in him. To build a life where his value didn't depend on people who had never valued him in the first place. The spark of resolve that had been flickering since the airport burst into flame. Monday morning, Jeremy dragged himself to work at his digital marketing firm with a splitting headache from stress and dehydration. He'd been working there for 3 years as a mid-level designer, competent but unremarkable, doing enough to keep his job but never quite excelling. It was safe, predictable, and exactly the kind of mediocrity his mother had always predicted for him. His boss, Sarah Chun, called him into her office around 10 a.m. Jeremy expected bad news. Maybe she'd heard about his distracted work last week, his emergency time-off request for the wedding that never happened. Instead, Sarah looked at him with an expression of calculated opportunity. Jeremy, I'm going to be direct. You've been coasting here for a while. His stomach dropped. Here it comes. The firing, the confirmation that he really was the failure his family believed him to be. But, Sarah continued, I've seen your side work. The freelance stuff you do on weekends. It's better than what you produce here. Sharper, more creative. So I have a question. Are you actually bad at this, or are you just phoning it in? Jeremy blinked, caught off guard by her directness. I don't know. Sarah leaned forward, her expression intense. Well, figure it out, because I'm offering you something. We just landed a contract with a wellness startup called Mindful Path. They're expanding nationally, need a complete brand overhaul, digital presence, social strategy. It's a 6-month project, massive budget. I'm looking for someone to lead it. Lead it. Jeremy's voice was uncertain. Sarah, I'm not a lead. I'm barely. She cut him off with a wave of her hand. You're barely anything because you don't try. But I saw your portfolio from those freelance clients. You have vision when you care about something. So here's the deal. This project could change your trajectory here. Could mean a promotion, significant raise, real responsibility. Or you can keep doing what you're doing and stay exactly where you are. Your choice. Jeremy sat in silence, his mind spinning. A week ago, he would have said no. Too risky, too much pressure, too many ways to fail, and confirm every negative thing his family thought about him. But something had shifted. The family that would have critiqued his choices wasn't speaking to him anyway. The fear of disappointing them was irrelevant when they'd already written him off. I'll do it, he heard himself say. I'll lead the project. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her in months. Good. Meeting with the clients is Thursday. Don't make me regret this. As Jeremy walked back to his desk, he felt something unfamiliar, excitement. Not the nervous, people-pleasing anxiety that usually accompanied new responsibilities, but actual, genuine excitement about building something. About proving, to himself, not to his family, that he was capable of more than they'd ever believed. He threw himself into the project with an intensity that surprised even him. Late nights stopped being about avoiding his empty apartment and started being about perfecting presentations, researching wellness industry trends, crafting brand narratives. The work that had always felt like an obligation suddenly felt like an opportunity. He wasn't working to make his family proud anymore. He was working to build something that was entirely his. The Thursday meeting with Mindful Path started at 2 p.m. in the firm's main conference room. Jeremy arrived 15 minutes early, his presentation loaded and ready, his hands only slightly trembling. Sarah had briefed him on the clients. The founder, a former tech executive named James, and their primary investor, a woman named Evelyn March who apparently had a reputation for being brilliant, demanding, and impossible to impress. Evelyn walked in at 2:01 p.m. wearing a sharp charcoal suit and carrying an energy that made everyone in the room sit up straighter. She was maybe 55, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that seemed to catalog everything about Jeremy in 3 seconds. "You're the lead on this?" she asked, not rudely but with clear skepticism. "You look about 12. 28, Jeremy replied, then added with a small smile. "But I've been told I have an old soul." Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, amusement maybe. "Well, old soul, show me why Sarah thinks you can handle this." Jeremy launched into his presentation, and something strange happened. All the anxiety he usually felt disappeared, replaced by pure focus. He talked about brand identity, about the wellness market's oversaturation, about differentiating mindful path through authentic storytelling rather than generic inspiration. He showed mock-ups, strategy frameworks, timeline projections. When he finished, Evelyn sat back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "You've done your research," she said finally. "Most designers come in with pretty pictures and vague promises. You came in with a business case. Why?" Jeremy hesitated, then decided honesty was his only play. "Because pretty pictures don't matter if they don't drive results. I'm not here to make you feel good about your brand. I'm here to make your brand work." Evelyn smiled then, a real smile that transformed her severe face. "I like you. You've got grit." She looked at Sarah. "He's leading this, not you, right? I want to work with him directly." Sarah nodded, clearly pleased. "Jeremy's your point person. He reports to me, but day-to-day, he's running it." The meeting wrapped up quickly after that, details and contracts and timelines. As everyone filed out, Evelyn held back, gesturing for Jeremy to stay. "Can I ask you something?" She studied him with those sharp eyes. "You design like someone with something to prove. What are you running from?" The question was so direct it knocked Jeremy off balance. "I'm not running," he started, but Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Okay," he admitted, "maybe I am. Or was. I don't know." She nodded, like he'd confirmed something she already suspected. "Ever thought of running your own thing? Instead of just executing someone else's vision?" "My own thing." Jeremy laughed, but it came out bitter. "I can barely manage my own life. Running a business." Evelyn pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. "That's my personal cell. When you're ready to stop underestimating yourself, call me. I invest in people with grit. You've got it. You just need to believe it." She handed him the card and walked out, leaving Jeremy standing in the empty conference room, holding a piece of paper that felt like a door opening to a life he'd never considered possible. Weeks passed. Jeremy threw himself into the Mindful Path project with obsessive focus, working late nights and weekends. The work was hard but satisfying in ways his previous job had never been. He was building something, creating something that mattered. And slowly, the constant ache of his family's rejection began to dull, replaced by the satisfaction of competence and progress. But the silence from his family was deafening. No calls, no texts. Not from his mother, not from Melissa, not from Marcus. It was as if the airport incident had never happened, as if he simply didn't exist. Jeremy checked the family group chat occasionally. He'd unblocked it after a week, unable to resist the masochistic pull of seeing what he was missing. They were still posting regularly. Marcus's honeymoon photos, Melissa's promotion at work, his parents' anniversary dinner. Life continued without him, smooth and uninterrupted. Then, 6 weeks after the wedding, a package arrived. Jeremy found it on his doorstep when he got home from work at 9 p.m., a flat box about the size of a picture frame. No return address, just his name. He brought it inside and opened it carefully, revealing exactly what he'd suspected: a framed photo from Marcus's wedding. The photo was beautiful, objectively. His whole family on the beach at sunset, everyone dressed in their wedding best, faces lit with genuine joy. His mother and father with their arms around Marcus and Rachel. Melissa and her husband off to one side, laughing. Aunts and uncles and cousins filling out the frame. A perfect family moment, professionally captured and tastefully framed. Jeremy's name was on the shipping label. Misspelled. Jeremy Harrison. It read one extra E, that proved no one had even proofread the address before sending it. That detail, the misspelling of his name by the people who gave him that name, hurt more than he wanted to admit. It was the final, perfect symbol of his status. Present enough to receive family memorabilia, not important enough to spell correctly. There was no note, no explanation, no apology, just the photo, a physical reminder that he had been deliberately excluded from this moment, and now they expected him to display it in his home. To commemorate the day they'd decided he didn't belong. The casual cruelty of it was almost impressive. Jeremy set the frame face down on his counter and stared at it for a long time. This was the final straw. Not the explosion he'd imagined, not some dramatic confrontation, just a quiet recognition that he was done. Done hoping they'd apologize. Done waiting for them to acknowledge the hurt. Done trying to maintain connection with people who saw him as an obligation rather than a son and brother. He took a photo of the package and the misspelled label, added it to his growing folder of documentation, and threw the frame in his storage closet with the other family photos. Then he called Evelyn. Evelyn answered on the second ring. "Jeremy." I've been wondering if you'd call. Her voice was warm but not surprised, like she'd been expecting this. The card you gave me, Jeremy said, about running my own thing. Were you serious? A pause then. Are you? Jeremy looked around his small apartment, at the life he'd built by playing small, by trying to be acceptable, by never risking failure, because failure would confirm what his family already believed about him. Yes, he said, his voice steady. I'm serious. Evelyn made a satisfied sound. Good. Come to my office tomorrow at 7 a.m. Bring your portfolio and your brain. We have a lot to discuss. She hung up before he could respond. Jeremy stayed up until 3 a.m. that night, pulling together his best work, writing up business ideas he'd been sketching in notebooks for years, preparing like his life depended on it. Because maybe it did. Maybe this was the moment everything changed. The meeting with Evelyn was intense. She grilled him on everything: his design philosophy, his business acumen, his financial situation, his goals. Why do you want to do this? She finally asked. And don't give me some bullshit about passion or following dreams. Why really? Jeremy thought about lying, about giving her the professional answer she probably expected. Instead, he told the truth. Because I'm tired of making other people's visions real while mine stay in notebooks. Because I've spent my whole life trying to be acceptable to people who never accepted me anyway. Because I want to build something that's mine, that no one can take away or discount or exclude me from. Evelyn nodded slowly. That's honest. And honestly, that's the right answer. Spite and determination make better fuel than inspiration. She pulled out a folder. Here's my proposal. I'll provide seed funding for you to launch a digital design agency. $20,000 to start, more if you hit milestones. I take 20% equity. You work with Sarah to transition out of your current role gracefully. I don't burn bridges, and neither should you. You line up your first clients, which will include Mindful Path once their contract with Sarah's firm expires. You build something real. Deal. Jeremy's hands were shaking as he took the folder. Why are you doing this? Evelyn's expression softened slightly. Because 30 years ago, someone took a chance on me when I was a mess. And because I see something in you that you don't see in yourself yet. Hungry people build empires. You're hungry. You just didn't know you had permission to eat. Consider this your permission. Jeremy signed the papers that day. He gave his notice at Sarah's firm. 4 months to complete the Mindful Path project and transition his other work. He filed paperwork for his LLC. He built a website. He reached out to every freelance client he'd ever worked with, offering them priority access to his new agency. And it was working. Slowly at first, then faster. His first official client signed on within 2 weeks. Then a second. Then a third. The late nights continued, but now they were building his empire, not someone else's. Every hour invested was an hour toward something that bore his name, his vision, his standards. For the first time in his adult life, Jeremy felt like he was moving towards something rather than away from failure. 4 months into launching his agency, which he'd named Clarity Studios, both for the design concept and for the clarity he'd found in leaving his family behind, Jeremy landed a project that changed everything. A sustainable fashion brand called Threadline hired him to overhaul their digital presence. They had great products but terrible marketing, a situation Jeremy was becoming expert at fixing. He created a campaign centered on real stories from their customers. Not models, not influencers, just ordinary people wearing Threadline's clothes in their actual lives. The authenticity was radical in an industry built on aspiration and illusion. He shot photos in coffee shops and playgrounds, at kitchen tables and subway platforms. He wrote copy that sounded like humans talking instead of marketing departments strategizing. The campaign launched on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, one of the posts had been shared 15,000 times. By Wednesday, it was on major fashion blogs. By Thursday, Threadline's CEO was calling him ecstatically to report they'd sold out of 3 product lines and their website had crashed from traffic. By Friday, Jeremy's agency email was flooded with inquiries from brands that had seen the campaign. He signed his first 6-figure client on Monday, a wellness tech company that wanted the same authentic approach for their product launch. 6 figures. Jeremy stared at the contract for a full minute before signing it, his hands trembling slightly. A year ago, he'd been scraping by on a mediocre salary, measuring his worth by his family's dismissiveness. Now he was signing contracts that would change his financial life completely. For the first time since the airport, Jeremy felt unstoppable. Not because he was proving his family wrong. He'd stopped caring about their opinions months ago. But because he was proving himself right. Right that he had value. Right that he had vision. Right that the small, safe life he'd been living was a cage he'd built to accommodate other people's expectations. Evelyn called him that afternoon. I saw the Threadline campaign. Brilliant work. You're ahead of my projections by 6 months. How does it feel? Jeremy laughed, giddy with success and exhaustion. Terrifying and amazing. Mostly amazing. Good, Evelyn said. Stay scared. Comfortable people don't innovate. Now, celebration later. Right now, I need you to prepare for scaling. You're going to need staff soon. They talked strategy for an hour, Jeremy taking notes frantically, his mind spinning with possibilities. He was building something real. Something that mattered. Something entirely his. And just as he was starting to feel like his old life was truly behind him, his phone lit up with a call from a number he'd blocked months ago. His mother. Jeremy stared at the blocked number notification for a long moment. His mother had called 3 times in succession, which meant she'd left voicemails. He unblocked her number, not out of forgiveness, but out of curiosity. What could she possibly want after 8 months of silence? He listened to the voicemails on speaker while organizing his desk. The first, Jeremy, it's Mom. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I was hoping we could catch up. Call me when you get a chance. Her voice was warm, friendly, as if the last 8 months hadn't happened. As if she hadn't excluded him from his own brother's wedding. The second, Jeremy, sweetheart, please call me back. It's important. Family stuff. The third, Jeremy, I really need to talk to you. It's about Marcus. Please call. The mention of Marcus made his stomach clench. Was something wrong? Was Marcus hurt? Despite everything, despite the exclusion and the betrayal, Marcus was still his little brother. Jeremy called back. His mother answered immediately. Jeremy. Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. Her voice was breathless with relief, warm with artificial affection. What's wrong with Marcus? Jeremy asked, cutting through the pleasantries. Oh, Marcus is fine. Well, not fine exactly. He and Rachel are going through a rough patch. He lost his job 2 months ago. Tech layoffs. You know how it is. They're struggling financially, and the stress is hard on their marriage. Jeremy processed this information slowly. Okay. That's terrible for them. But why are you calling me? His mother's voice shifted, became more careful, more coaxing. Well, sweetheart, we were hoping you might be able to help out. Maybe lend Marcus some money to get through this rough period. Just until he finds something new. Family helps family, right? The audacity of it stole Jeremy's breath. 8 months ago, they'd excluded him from Marcus's wedding because he was the problem child, the one who would cause drama. Now they wanted money. How much? He managed to ask. Well, they need about $30,000 to cover immediate expenses. Mortgage, car payments, that sort of thing. His mother said it casually, like she was asking him to pick up milk. I told Marcus you'd probably be willing to help. He's your brother, after all. Jeremy laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You told him I'd help. Did you tell him you excluded me from his wedding? Did you tell him you let me show up at the airport with no ticket because it was easier? Jeremy, that was months ago. Don't hold grudges. Marcus needs help now. The easy dismissal of his pain, the casual expectation that he should just get over being erased, snapped something in him. How did you even know I have money? His voice was cold. You haven't talked to me in 8 months. How do you know I'm not still the struggling failure you always treated me as? A pause. Then his mother's voice, slightly defensive. Melissa saw your business posts on LinkedIn. She said you're doing well. So I thought. You thought you could use me now that I'm useful. Jeremy finished her sentence. When I was struggling, you excluded me. Now that I'm successful, you want money. His mother's voice turned sharp, defensive. That's not fair, Jeremy. We're family. Family helps each other in times of need. Jeremy felt something cold settle in his chest. Family? You mean the family that excluded me from Marcus's wedding? The family that lied to me about a plane ticket? The family that hasn't called me once in 8 months? We didn't call because you made it clear you wanted space, his mother said, her tone shifting to wounded victim. You blocked everyone. You were the one who cut us off. The revisionist history was staggering. Mom, I blocked you after you told me I wasn't invited to my own brother's wedding. After Melissa told me to grow up for being upset about it. I didn't cut you off. You erased me first. This is exactly what I'm talking about, his mother said, her voice rising. You're making this about your feelings instead of helping your brother. He's struggling, Jeremy. He needs family support right now, and you're too busy nursing old grievances to care about him. Jeremy closed his eyes, recognizing the manipulation for what it was. The attempt to make him feel guilty, to paint his boundary as selfishness, to reframe his legitimate hurt as pettiness. "Let me be very clear," Jeremy said, his voice steady despite the anger coursing through him. "I will not be giving Marcus $30,000. Not because I don't care about him, but because you don't get to exclude me from the family and then include me only when you need something. That's not how relationships work. So you're just going to abandon your brother when he needs you most?" His mother's voice was incredulous, outraged. "What kind of person does that make you?" Jeremy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The kind of person who learned from my family that conditional love is the only kind that exists. You taught me that, Mom. Congratulations. If you don't help Marcus, don't expect to be welcomed back to this family," she said, her voice turning cold and threatening. "There are consequences for being selfish, Jeremy." And there it was, the ultimatum, the threat, the confirmation that his place in the family had always been conditional, always dependent on his usefulness, his compliance, his willingness to absorb their treatment without complaint. "I was never welcomed in this family," Jeremy said quietly. "That's the whole point. So your threat doesn't work, Mom. You can't take away something I never had." He hung up before she could respond, his hands shaking with adrenaline and something that felt almost like relief. The mask was fully off now. No more pretending they were a normal family. No more pretending their love had ever been unconditional. Jeremy didn't expect to hear from Marcus directly. His little brother had always let their parents speak for him, always gone along with whatever narrative their mother constructed. So when Marcus's name appeared on his phone screen 2 days later, Jeremy almost didn't answer. But curiosity won out. "Hey, Ja." Marcus's voice was tired, defeated in a way Jeremy had never heard before. "I guess Mom called you." Jeremy leaned back in his desk chair, his new office suddenly feeling too small. "She did. Wanted me to give you $30,000. A long sigh on the other end. "Yeah, I told her not to ask you. But you know how she is." "Do I?" Jeremy's voice was harder than he intended. "Because I thought I knew how she was. Then she excluded me from your wedding and lied about it." Silence stretched between them, heavy with 8 months of unspoken words. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry about that. I really am. It wasn't my idea." "But you went along with it," Jeremy said, the old hurt resurfacing. "You're my brother, Marcus. You could have said no. You could have insisted I be there. But you didn't." More silence. "Then, you're right. I should have fought for you. I was a coward. Mom was so insistent that having you there would cause drama, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I chose the easy path." The admission surprised Jeremy. He'd expected defensiveness, excuses, more blame-shifting. Instead, Marcus sounded genuinely remorseful, genuinely aware of what he'd done. "Why are you telling me this now?" Jeremy asked. "Because you want money?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "No. Actually, I'm calling to tell you not to give me money. Mom's been hounding me to call you, to guilt you into helping. But that's not fair to you. You don't owe me anything. Especially not after what we did." Jeremy felt something shift in his chest. Not forgiveness, not quite. But maybe the beginning of understanding. "What happened with your job?" he asked, surprising himself with the question. Marcus sighed again. "Tech layoffs. My whole department got cut. I've been applying everywhere, but the market's brutal right now. Rachel and I are barely keeping our heads above water. Mom thinks you're our magical solution because Melissa told her you're successful now." "I am doing well," Jeremy admitted. "But that doesn't mean I owe you guys my success. Not after everything." He paused, weighing his next words carefully. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. What happened at the wedding, that wasn't just about missing a party. It was about realizing my whole family saw me as disposable, as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be loved." "I know," Marcus said quietly, "and I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to want a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that I see now what we did was wrong. What I did was wrong. You deserved better from your little brother." The conversation ended without resolution, without reconciliation, but with something Jeremy hadn't expected: honesty. Marcus had owned his mistake without excuses. It didn't fix anything, didn't erase the hurt, but it was more than anyone else in his family had offered. If Marcus's call had been unexpectedly genuine, Melissa's text messages the next day were predictably hostile. They came in rapid succession, each one more aggressive than the last. Mom told me you refused to help Marcus. Real nice, Ja. You've always been selfish, but this is a new low. Marcus is struggling and you're too petty to help because of some imagined slight from months ago. Guess money changed you. You're not the person I thought you were. Don't bother reaching out when you need family support. We won't forget this. Jeremy read through the messages with a strange detachment. A year ago, these words would have destroyed him, would have sent him spiraling into self-doubt and guilt. Now they just felt hollow, transparent attempts at manipulation that no longer had power over him. He typed out a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, he settled on something simple. Melissa, you told me to grow up when I was hurt about being excluded from Marcus's wedding. I have grown up. Part of growing up is learning that family isn't just about showing up when people need something from you. It's about showing up, period. You didn't show up for me. I don't owe you anything now. Her response came immediately. You're going to regret this. Family is everything, and you're throwing us away over your hurt feelings. Jeremy smiled grimly at his phone. No, Melissa. I'm not throwing family away. You guys did that 8 months ago at an airport terminal. I'm just finally accepting what you already decided. He blocked her number before she could respond. No more arguments. No more circular conversations where his hurt was dismissed as sensitivity and their cruelty was reframed as love. His phone buzzed again, a different number this time. His Aunt Carol, who had posted that Harrison family together at last caption on the wedding photos. The text was brief. Jeremy, your mother told me what's happening. I'm very disappointed in you. Marcus needs family support right now, and you're being vindictive. This isn't who we raised you to be. Jeremy stared at the message, at the casual cruelty of who we raised you to be, as if his aunt had any significant role in his upbringing, as if any of them had raised him to be anything other than a convenient scapegoat for family dysfunction. He didn't respond, didn't block her, didn't engage. Just let the message sit there, unanswered, a monument to their continued inability to see him as anything other than a problem. That weekend, Jeremy met Evelyn for their monthly check-in at a coffee shop in downtown LA. She took one look at his face and ordered him a double espresso. Family drama? She asked, her tone knowing. Jeremy nodded, too tired to hide it. How'd you guess? Evelyn smiled slightly. Because I've seen that look in the mirror. Want to talk about it? Or want to focus on business? Business, Jeremy said immediately, grateful for the out. But Evelyn shook her head. Nice try. But I'm not just your investor, Jeremy. I'm your mentor. And part of mentoring is knowing when business problems are actually personal problems in disguise. So talk. Jeremy found himself explaining everything. The wedding exclusion, the months of silence, the sudden calls asking for money, the family's outrage at his refusal. Evelyn listened without interrupting, her expression growing more severe with each detail. Let me tell you something about family, she said when he finished. Blood doesn't make people worthy of access to your life. Behavior does. These people excluded you, lied to you, and now they're trying to manipulate you into giving them money. That's not family, that's exploitation. Jeremy felt something loosen in his chest, permission he hadn't known he needed. They keep saying I'm being selfish, that I'm abandoning Marcus when he needs me. You know what's selfish? Evelyn's voice was sharp. Excluding your son from his brother's wedding and then expecting him to bankroll that same brother when it's convenient. That's selfish. You setting a boundary? That's self-preservation. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Jeremy, you've built something incredible in the past 8 months. You've quadrupled your client base. You're hiring your first employee next month. You're being featured in design publications. You did all of that without their support. Don't let them take credit for your success or make you feel guilty for protecting it. They talked for 2 hours, and by the end, Jeremy felt steadier. Evelyn shared her own story of cutting off toxic family members, of building success despite, or perhaps because of their absence. The family you choose is often more real than the family you're born into, she said. Find your people. Keep them close. And don't waste energy on people who only want you around when you're useful. Over the following weeks, Jeremy started building that chosen family. His first hire was a young designer named Alex who reminded him of himself 2 years ago, talented but lacking confidence. He mentored Alex the way Evelyn mentored him, with honesty and high expectations. He reconnected with old friends from college he'd lost touch with while trying to please his family. He joined a business owners networking group where people understood the demands of building something from nothing. And slowly, the hole his biological family had left began to fill with people who actually valued him, who celebrated his wins without resentment, who showed up when he needed support without keeping score, who saw his boundaries as healthy rather than punitive. This, Jeremy realized, was what family was supposed to feel like. Thanksgiving approached like a storm on the horizon. It would be Jeremy's first major holiday entirely separate from his family. Last year, he'd endured the usual Harrison family Thanksgiving. His mother's passive-aggressive comments about his career, his father's disinterest in his life, Melissa's subtle digs, Marcus's oblivious cheerfulness. This year, he had no invitation. Not that he wanted one. Alex mentioned casually that he was staying in LA for the holiday. His family was on the East Coast, and plane tickets were too expensive on his junior designer salary. Want to do an orphan Thanksgiving? Jeremy found himself asking. I make a decent turkey, and we can watch football and pretend we're not avoiding family drama. Alex grinned. That sounds perfect, actually. I'll bring pie. Store-bought, because I can't bake to save my life. What started as a two-person plan expanded organically. Sarah Chin mentioned she was alone for the holiday. Her parents were in Taiwan, and she couldn't get time off to visit. Evelyn, when Jeremy mentioned his plans, invited herself with characteristic directness. My kids are with their father this year. I'll bring wine. Good wine, not that grocery store garbage. By the time Thanksgiving arrived, Jeremy's small apartment was hosting 6 people, an eclectic group bound by choice rather than blood. As they sat around his second-hand dining table, eating turkey that was slightly dry but edible, Jeremy felt something he'd never felt at a family holiday. Genuine warmth. There were no barbed comments disguised as concern. No one questioned his life choices or compared him unfavorably to siblings. People laughed at his jokes, asked about his work with real interest, shared their own stories without one-upping or diminishing. Evelyn raised her glass midway through dinner. A toast. To chosen family. To the people who show up, who support without conditions, who celebrate our wins and hold space for our struggles. To building the family we deserved instead of settling for the one we got. Everyone raised their glasses, and Jeremy felt his throat tighten with unexpected emotion. This was what he'd been searching for his whole life. Not perfection. Not people without problems. Just people who showed up. Who saw him. Who valued him not for what he could do for them, but for who he was. Later that night, after everyone had left and his apartment was a mess of dishes and leftovers, Jeremy checked his phone. There were no messages from his mother, no calls from Melissa, no holiday wishes from his father. The silence should have hurt. Instead, it felt like freedom. He was done waiting for scraps of affection from people who had never learned how to love him properly. He had found his people. The rest was just noise. December arrived with unseasonable warmth and unexpected professional success. Clarity Studios landed a contract with a major beverage company, a 6-month project worth more than Jeremy had made in his entire previous year at Sarah's firm. He hired 2 more designers and moved into a proper office space, a bright loft in downtown LA with exposed brick and huge windows. He was 29, successful, and for the first time in his life, genuinely happy. Then came the Christmas card. It arrived at his new office. Someone had tracked down his business address. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive, embossed with gold lettering. Inside was a photo card showing his entire family in matching red sweaters, posed in front of a decorated tree. His mother, father, Marcus, Rachel, Melissa, and her husband, all smiling like a stock photo of familial bliss. At the bottom, in his mother's elegant script, "The Harrison family wishes you a Merry Christmas. We miss you and hope you'll join us for Christmas Eve dinner. It's time to put the past behind us and be a family again." Jeremy read the card 3 times, looking for the apology he knew wouldn't be there. No acknowledgement of what they'd done. No recognition of their behavior. Just put the past behind us. As if the past were an inconvenience rather than a series of deliberate hurts. The invitation wasn't about reconciliation. It was about maintaining appearances, about filling the awkward gap at the table, about not having to explain to relatives why the oldest son wasn't there. He almost threw the card away. Almost. But something made him keep it, add it to his growing collection of documentation. Evidence of their continued inability to take responsibility. Evidence that he'd made the right choice in walking away. That night, He drafted a response. Not a text. They deserved the same formal distance they'd given him. He printed it on Clarity Studios' letterhead, professional and final. Thank you for the invitation. I will not be attending Christmas Eve dinner or any future family gatherings. To be clear, I'm not holding a grudge or being petty. I'm protecting myself from a dynamic that has been harmful to my well-being for as long as I can remember. You excluded me from Marcus's wedding without apology. You contacted me after months of silence, only to ask for money. You've made it clear that my value to this family is conditional and utilitarian. I'm choosing to surround myself with people who value me unconditionally instead. I wish you all well, but I will not be maintaining contact going forward. Please respect this boundary. He signed it, sealed it in an envelope, and mailed it before he could second-guess himself. It felt like closing a book he'd been trying to finish for 29 years. Not a happy ending, but an ending nonetheless. Definitive. Final. Free. Jeremy should have anticipated his mother's next move, but he'd underestimated her need for control and appearances. 3 days after she would have received his letter, she posted on Facebook, a platform Jeremy rarely used, but where many mutual family friends could see. The post was a masterclass in manipulation. Heartbroken this Christmas as our family deals with estrangement. Despite our best efforts to reconcile, our oldest son has chosen to cut off all contact over a misunderstanding from earlier this year. We miss him terribly and pray he finds it in his heart to forgive and come home. Family is everything, and it's devastating when pride prevents healing. If you're in contact with Jeremy, please encourage him to reach out. We love him unconditionally and always will. The comments flooded in immediately. Family friends expressing sympathy, offering prayers, gently criticizing Jeremy's pride, without knowing any actual facts. His Aunt Carol commented, "Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. Praying Jeremy comes to his senses. A family friend. So sad. Family is the most important thing. I hope he realizes that before it's too late." His mother responded to each with variations of "thank you for your support," and "we're trying to stay hopeful." Jeremy saw the post because 3 different people sent him screenshots, each with some version of, "Hey, saw this. Hope you're okay." He read it sitting in his office, his coffee going cold as rage built in his chest. The manipulation, the reframing of his boundary as pride, the public martyrdom, the implication that he was the problem, the ungrateful son refusing to forgive a mere misunderstanding. It was gaslighting on a public stage, recruiting an audience to her narrative. For a moment, he considered responding publicly, laying out the truth, the wedding exclusion, the fake ticket, the months of silence broken only by requests for money, showing the screenshots he'd saved, the text messages, the misspelled shipping label, proving to everyone that his mother's version of events was fiction designed to protect her image. But then he stopped. Responding would only give her what she wanted: engagement, drama, a battle she could frame as his continued dysfunction. Instead, he called Evelyn. "My mother posted on Facebook," he said without preamble. "Made me look like the villain for setting boundaries. People are commenting, taking her side, telling her they're praying I come to my senses." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "And you want to defend yourself publicly?" "It wasn't a question. I want people to know the truth," Jeremy admitted. "I want them to know I'm not the bad guy here." "Jeremy, listen to me carefully," Evelyn said, her voice firm but kind. "People who matter will believe you without proof. People who don't matter will doubt you even with proof. Your mother is playing to an audience that doesn't actually affect your life. Let her have her Facebook martyrdom. You have your truth, your boundaries, and your peace. Don't trade your peace for the satisfaction of being right in front of people who don't matter." Jeremy absorbed this, feeling the rage slowly deflate into something steadier. "So I just let her lie." "You let her tell whatever story she needs to tell," Evelyn corrected. "And you live your truth so loudly that the lies don't matter. The people who count, your real friends, your chosen family, your clients who trust you, they know who you are. The rest is just noise." Jeremy thanked her and hung up. He blocked his mother on social media, not dramatically but quietly. Then he went back to work, to the life he'd built, to the people who actually showed up for him. The Facebook post existed somewhere in the digital ether. But it existed without his energy, without his engagement, without his care. His mother could have her narrative. He had his reality. And his reality was better. 3 weeks into the new year, Marcus called again. Jeremy almost didn't answer. Their last conversation had been civil but hadn't led anywhere, and Jeremy wasn't interested in being drawn back into family drama. But something made him pick up. "Hey," Marcus said, his voice uncertain. "I know you're probably done with all of us. But I wanted to tell you something, and I didn't want you to hear it from Mom." Jeremy's stomach tightened. "Hear what?" Marcus took a breath. "Rachel and I are separating. We're going to try therapy first, but it's not looking good. The financial stress, the job situation, everything, it broke us. And she's been telling everyone I'd be fine if you'd helped. Like you refusing to give me money is why my marriage is falling apart." Jeremy closed his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of being made responsible for problems he didn't create. "Marcus, I'm sorry about your marriage. Genuinely. But you know that's not my fault, right? Your marriage issues aren't because I wouldn't give you money." He paused. "Please tell me you know that." A long silence. "I do know that," Marcus finally said. "I know Mom's rewriting history to make you the villain. That's actually why I'm calling. To tell you that I'm not going along with it anymore. I told her yesterday that this wasn't your fault, that you had every right to set boundaries after what we did." Jeremy felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness, but the beginning of respect. "How did she take that?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "About as well as you'd expect. Told me I was being manipulated by you, that I was choosing the wrong side. But Joe, I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending we were a functional family. I'm tired of Mom controlling the narrative. I'm tired of watching her vilify you for having the courage to walk away from dysfunction." "What are you saying, Marcus?" Jeremy asked carefully. "I'm saying I want to rebuild a relationship with you, if you're open to it. Not as part of the family. I know that bridge is burned. But as brothers. Separate from all of them. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately. I know I have to earn that. But I want to try." Jeremy sat with this for a long moment, weighing the sincerity in Marcus's voice against years of disappointment. "If we do this," Jeremy said slowly, "it has to be completely separate from them. I won't be a bridge back to the family. I won't do holidays or gatherings. And if you tell Mom anything about my life, we're done. Understood?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Understood. This is between us. No one else." They talked for another hour, carefully, honestly. Marcus shared details about his failing marriage, his job search struggles, his growing awareness that their mother's control had damaged all of them in different ways. Jeremy shared parts of his business success, his new life, his chosen family. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet, but it was a tentative first step toward something real. Spring brought new contracts, new team members, and a feature article in a major design publication about Clarity Studios' innovative approach to brand authenticity. Jeremy's father called for the first time in over a year. The conversation was brief, awkward, and transparently transactional. "Your mother showed me the article," his father said, his voice carefully neutral. "Looks like you're doing well." "I am," Jeremy replied, waiting for the real reason for the call. His father cleared his throat. "Look, son, I'm calling because I think you should know something. Your mother is talking about changing the will. Says if you're not going to be part of the family, you shouldn't benefit from the family estate." Jeremy felt nothing. No shock, no hurt, no fear. Just a distant recognition that his mother had found a new manipulation tactic. "Okay," he said simply. His father seemed taken aback by the lack of reaction. "You don't care? We're talking about a significant inheritance here. Your share would be substantial." Jeremy almost laughed. "Dad, let me be very clear. I don't want anything from this family. Not money, not inheritance, not approval. I've built my own life, my own success, my own security. You can't threaten me with taking away something I don't need and never wanted." "Jeremy, don't be hasty," his father said, his tone shifting to something that might have been concern but sounded more like alarm. "You're young. You don't understand the value of generational wealth. What your mother and I have built." Jeremy cut him off gently. "What you built is yours to do with as you please. Give it to Marcus and Melissa. Give it to charity. Light it on fire. I genuinely don't care. My life isn't dependent on your validation or your money. That's the whole point." The silence stretched. Finally, his father spoke again, and for the first time, Jeremy heard something like respect in his voice. "You really mean that?" It wasn't a question. "I really do," Jeremy confirmed. "I'm not interested in playing family politics or performing for scraps of approval. I know who I am now, and it has nothing to do with being a Harrison. I'm building my own legacy." After they hung up, Jeremy sat in his office and stared out at the LA skyline. A year and a half ago, The threat of being written out of the will would have devastated him. Not because of the money, but because of what it symbolized. Proof that he really was disposable, really was the family failure. Now, it meant nothing. He'd already written himself out of their story. They were just catching up. In April, Clarity Studios won a Webby Award for their campaign with a nonprofit focused on mental health awareness. Jeremy flew to New York for the ceremony with Alex and his newest hire, a brilliant strategist named Priya. Standing on stage, accepting the award, speaking to an audience of industry leaders and innovators, Jeremy felt the ghost of his old self. The one who had measured worth by his family's standards, finally, fully fade away. The acceptance speech was supposed to be brief, professional. But standing there, holding physical proof that he'd built something meaningful, something recognized by people who actually mattered in his field, Jeremy deviated from his notes. A year and a half ago, I was working in mediocrity because I was afraid of failing. Afraid of confirming what certain people in my life already believed about me. Then something happened that forced me to choose. Keep living small and safe, or build something real and risk failing spectacularly. He paused, finding Evelyn in the audience. I chose to build. And I learned that the only failure is letting other people's limited vision of you define what you're capable of. This award isn't mine. It belongs to every person who's been told they're not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. To everyone who's been excluded, dismissed, or erased by people who should have celebrated them. This is proof that their assessment was wrong. Thank you. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, Alex hugged him, Priya was crying, and Evelyn looked at him with undisguised pride. That speech, she said, was perfect. You just gave permission to thousands of people to stop shrinking. Jeremy's phone exploded with messages, industry colleagues, clients, friends. And buried in them, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Saw your speech. I'm proud of you, Jamarcus. Nothing from his mother. Nothing from Melissa. Nothing from his father. Their silence was louder than any message could have been. They'd watched him succeed publicly, spectacularly, and couldn't bring themselves to celebrate it. The truth of what they were, what they'd always been, was undeniable now. And Jeremy was finally completely okay with it. 6 months after the Webby Awards, Jeremy received an email that stopped him cold. The sender was his Aunt Patricia, his father's sister, someone he'd barely interacted with over the years. Subject line, long overdue truth. He almost deleted it. Almost. But something made him click. Jeremy, you don't know me well. I kept my distance from your parents' household because I saw things I didn't agree with, but felt powerless to change. I'm writing now because I watched your award speech online and realized I've been complicit in your pain by staying silent. Your mother has been telling the family that you abandoned them, that you're selfish and ungrateful. I want you to know that I've always seen through it. I watched her exclude you, belittle you, treat you as lesser than your siblings for your entire childhood. I watched your father enable it. I stayed silent because confronting it would have meant being excluded myself. I chose comfort over courage, and for that, I'm truly sorry. The email continued for 3 paragraphs, detailing observations Jeremy had thought were invisible. Moments when his mother would praise Marcus and Melissa while ignoring his identical achievements, times when his father would laugh at jokes made at Jeremy's expense, family gatherings where he was systematically talked over or left out of conversations. Patricia acknowledged all of it, validated all of it, apologized for witnessing it without intervening. You owe me nothing, the email concluded. I'm not asking for a relationship or forgiveness. I just needed you to know that you weren't crazy. It was real. It was wrong. And you deserved better. The man you've become, the success you've built, the boundaries you've set, they're all proof that you survived a family that didn't deserve you. I'm proud of you, even if I have no right to be. Aunt Patricia. Jeremy read the email 5 times. It was the first acknowledgement from anyone in his extended family that his experience had been real, that his pain hadn't been manufactured or exaggerated. The validation was powerful, necessary, healing in ways he hadn't expected. He wrote back, thanking her for her honesty, not offering relationship but offering respect. Sometimes acknowledgement was enough. Sometimes knowing you weren't crazy was its own form of closure. 2 years after the airport incident, Clarity Studios had grown into a 20-person agency with offices in LA and Austin. Jeremy was 31, financially secure, and genuinely happy. Not the performative happiness he'd faked for family gatherings, but the deep contentment that came from building a life aligned with his values. He'd started a mentorship program through his company, offering free branding services to startups founded by people from underrepresented communities. It was his way of being the support system he'd never had. One of his ments, a young woman named Sophia who was building a platform for first-generation college students, reminded him of himself at 23, brilliant, talented, and carrying invisible wounds from family who didn't understand her ambitions. "My parents think I'm wasting my degree by not becoming a doctor," she confessed during one of their sessions. "They don't understand why I'm building this instead of making real money." Jeremy recognized that pain intimately. "Sometimes," he told her, "the people who are supposed to champion us are the ones most threatened by our growth. Not because we're doing anything wrong, but because our evolution highlights their stagnation. You're not responsible for their vision limitations." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "How did you deal with it?" "The guilt of disappointing them." "I chose myself," Jeremy said simply, "and I stopped measuring my worth by their inability to see my value. It was the hardest and best decision I ever made." They talked for 2 hours, and by the end, Sophia looked lighter, more determined. Watching her walk out of his office with renewed purpose, Jeremy realized this was his real legacy. Not the awards or revenue, but the permission he could give others to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing, to stop accepting crumbs from people who should have offered feasts. That evening, Marcus called. They'd been rebuilding their relationship slowly, carefully, through monthly phone calls and occasional coffee meetings when Marcus visited LA for job interviews. "Hey," Marcus said, "I got an offer. Senior position at a tech company in San Francisco. Good money, fresh start." Jeremy felt genuine happiness for his brother. "That's incredible, Marcus. Congratulations." "There's something else," Marcus continued. "Rachel and I are officially divorced. It's final. And I've started therapy. Real therapy, not just marriage counseling. Working through a lot of family stuff." He paused. "You were right to get out when you did, Ja. I'm starting to see how messed up it all was. How Mom controlled everything, how Dad enabled it, how we all just went along with it." Jeremy felt a mix of validation and sadness. "How's she taking your move to San Francisco?" Marcus laughed without humor. "She's furious. Says I'm following your example, abandoning the family. She doesn't understand that I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life. Like you did." They talked about his new job, his therapy insights, his plans for rebuilding. When they hung up, Jeremy felt something he'd thought impossible 2 years ago. Hope that Marcus might find the same freedom he'd found. That the damage their mother had done might not be permanent for his little brother. Jeremy had successfully avoided any direct contact with his mother for 2 years. Then came the call from the hospital. His father had a heart attack, serious but not fatal. The doctor who called him asked if he wanted to be listed as emergency contact. "His wife listed you as next of kin along with your siblings," the doctor explained. Jeremy's first instinct was to say no, to maintain the boundaries that had given him peace. But this was different. This was his father, who had been mostly absent but never cruel, who had enabled his mother but never actively hurt him. He drove to the hospital in Phoenix, a 5-hour drive he made in 4.5. Walking into his father's room felt like stepping through a portal into his old life. His mother was there, looking older and smaller than he remembered. Melissa sat in the corner, her face tight with surprise at seeing him. Marcus stood by the window, offering Jeremy a small, supportive nod. His father lay in the hospital bed, pale but conscious, connected to monitors that beeped steadily. "Jeremy," his father said, his voice weak but warm. "You came." Jeremy approached the bed, ignoring his mother's sharp intake of breath. "Of course I came. You're my father." They talked briefly. His father's prognosis was good, full recovery expected. Then his father did something unexpected. "Can everyone leave? I need to talk to Jeremy alone." When the room cleared, his father looked at him with something Jeremy had never seen before, genuine remorse. "I should have protected you," he said simply. "Your mother, she's difficult. She plays favorites, she manipulates. I always knew it, but I chose peace over protecting you. I let her exclude you from Marcus's wedding. I stood by while she vilified you for setting boundaries. I chose the easy path instead of the right one. And I'm sorry." The apology Jeremy had stopped expecting, delivered in a hospital room 2 years too late. He felt tears prick his eyes but blinked them back. "Why now?" he asked. "Because almost dying makes you see things clearly," his father said. "Makes you realize that the son who had the courage to walk away had more integrity than than the father who stayed silent. You built something real, Jeremy. You became someone despite us, not because of us. That takes strength I never had. They talked for an hour, the most honest conversation Jeremy had ever had with his father. It wasn't reconciliation, not quite. Too much damage, too many years. But it was acknowledgement. It was truth. It was something. When Jeremy finally left the room, his mother was waiting in the hallway. "I suppose you're satisfied now," she said, her voice cold. "Turning your father against his own family." Jeremy looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt, not even pity. Just vast indifference. "Mom, I didn't turn anyone against anyone. I just stopped pretending your version of family was acceptable. If that made you uncomfortable, that's not my problem to solve." She stepped forward, her face contorting with rage. "You've always been selfish, always ungrateful. We gave you everything. You gave me conditional love and constant criticism," Jeremy interrupted calmly. "And I've spent 2 years building a life without either. I'm happier now than I ever was trying to earn your approval." He started to walk away, then turned back. "I came here for Dad, not for you. Not for reconciliation. I'm not the lost son coming home. I'm the son who found himself by leaving. There's a difference." He walked out of the hospital, past Melissa, who stared at him with something between shock and grudging respect, past Marcus, who followed him outside. "That was intense," Marcus said. Jeremy laughed, feeling lighter than he had in days. "That was necessary. That was closure." Marcus hugged him, the first real hug they'd shared since before the wedding. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for showing me it was possible to leave." 3 years after standing in an airport terminal with a ticket that didn't exist, Jeremy stood in his company's new headquarters. A full floor in a downtown LA building with a view of the city he'd rebuilt himself in. Clarity Studios now employed 42 people, had satellite offices in 3 cities, and had just been acquired by a major marketing firm for an amount that made Jeremy financially independent for life. He was 32 years old, successful beyond his wildest dreams, and surrounded by people who chose him every day. The acquisition party was packed with everyone who mattered in his new life. Evelyn, who still owned her 20% equity and had just made a fortune, stood by the windows telling anyone who would listen about betting on Jeremy when he was just an angry kid with a cracked phone screen and a dream. Alex and Priya, now senior partners in the firm, argued playfully about who deserved credit for the company's success. Sophia and the other men's Jeremy had supported clustered around him, sharing their own success stories. Marcus was there too, flying in from San Francisco with his new girlfriend, a therapist who understood family trauma because she'd lived it herself. "I'm proud of you, Gia," Marcus said quietly. "Not just for this," he gestured at the party, "but for knowing when to walk away. You saved yourself. And watching you do it gave me permission to save myself too." They clinked glasses, brothers not by family obligation, but by choice and hard-won mutual respect. Jeremy's phone buzzed, a message from a number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it, but curiosity won. It was his mother. "Melissa told me about your company sale. I always knew you'd be successful. We should talk about reconciling. Family is important." Jeremy read it, showed it to Marcus, and they both laughed. The audacity, the inability to change, the perfect encapsulation of everything he'd left behind. He didn't respond, didn't block the number either, just left it floating in digital space, unanswered and unimportant. His mother would tell people he ignored her olive branch, would play the victim to anyone who'd listen. And Jeremy genuinely didn't care. Her narrative couldn't touch him anymore. He'd built a life so full of genuine connection, real success, and authentic love that her manipulation was just background noise. Sarachin approached, holding a champagne glass. "Speech time?" she asked. Jeremy nodded, tapping his glass to quiet the room. 42 employees, dozens of clients and friends, his chosen family, all looking at him with genuine affection and respect. 3 years ago, he began, I was living a small life, playing it safe, measuring my worth by the standards of people who would never think I was good enough. He paused, finding Evelyn's eyes. Then someone took a chance on me. Then someone else. Then I took a chance on myself. And we built this. Not just a company, but a family. The kind of family that shows up, that celebrates wins, that holds space for struggles. The kind that chooses each other every day. His voice grew stronger. So this isn't a speech about business success. This is a speech about what happens when you stop accepting conditional love and start demanding and offering the real thing. Thank you all for being my real thing. The applause was deafening. People hugged, cried, laughed. And Jeremy stood in the middle of it all, feeling completely, wholly, finally free. He'd walked away from a family that couldn't love him properly and built one that could. He'd turned rejection into fuel, pain into purpose, exclusion into excellence. The plane ticket that never existed had been the best thing that ever happened to him. Not because the pain didn't matter, but because it forced him to stop waiting for permission to be worthy and start believing it himself. He'd built an empire not despite his family's rejection, but from it. And that empire wasn't measured in dollars or awards or recognition, though he had all three. It was measured in peace, in joy, in the knowledge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, with exactly the people who were meant to find him. Jeremy Harrison was no longer defined by what was taken from him. He was defined by everything he built from the ashes of that loss. And watching the sun set over Los Angeles through the windows of his company, his creation, his legacy, his proof, he knew with absolute certainty that he'd done more than survive his family's rejection. He'd transcended it.